TIS and Club of Rome for giving me this opportunity this morning to share thoughts with you. But I would like to just correct, what has been given as my introduction. I am no longer with those affiliations. I am now a Professor Emeritus of Economics in Jawaharlal Nehru University, JNU, where I taught for 40 years. And I am also happen to be currently Mahatma Gandhi National Fellow of the Government of India, that is of ICSSR. Because of my second affiliation, I am feeling really emotionally upset and guilty. Because in the name of Mahatma, I am holding that position. But I was wondering, since the time when I have left Kolkata, where I am now currently based, and the time when I reached here, how much of waste of resources I have caused. Transportation energy, the hotel Taj President where I have been kept, the kind of resource and energy intensity it involves, was that necessary? British used to describe him as a half-naked seditious fakir, giving us all kinds of sermons. The seditious fakir repeatedly warned, the earth has got enough to meet everybody's need, but not everybody's greed. So I give my apology first to his memory, and then would like to share with you a few slides. First of all, I got a note, a concept note about this conference. Professor Parashuraman, who met me in Delhi, suggested that please you speak something on growth as development paradigm. So I came really prepared for that, but then I discovered I am in a session where I am really not fit for talking. But still I was trying to see how I can fit in. One interesting thing I find common that with other panelists, I have a common experience to share. I spent about a decade on analyzing and modeling, mathematical modeling, that is in the 1980s, early 80s, on Tata Steel's Jamshedpur factory. And others have also worked on that.
You could hold this.
Okay. And others have also been close association with that. With that industry, I learned how to model economic modeling of a plant technology and how to incorporate the environmental and resource dimension in posing problems and finding out answers. I think that would be better. Now, let me just say, the note said that, there might be development alternatives. Purpose, if it is development, is growth the only paradigm, or right paradigm? The note was somewhat anti-growth. But I would like to submit that, if development means the material well-being of the people of a society or of the world, then it has to the story has to center around the story of production and distribution. And this production is of material commodities and services. So, we also know that there is a biophysical foundation of production. And the biophysical foundation of production leads you to that we have to draw resources from the ecosystem, and we use them, convert them, produce consumable goods, consume them, and at the end of the process of the life cycle of all the material components, everything becomes a waste from human point of view, anthropocentric point of view, and they go back to the nature as a waste. Now, the point is this, that how far an economy can be provided such support by the ecosystem. Two kinds of services, resource supply and waste absorption, because I am presuming that the ecosystem will absorb whatever I am throwing into it. Now, what is the assumption? We know that, well, solar energy flow, biogeochemical cycles, entropy law play a very important role in determining both the support of ecosystems to the economy and its ultimate limits, because the planet is finite, ecosystems' capacity of providing support and supply is finite, ecosystems' ability to absorb waste per square centimeter of this Earth's surface or upper atmosphere surface is finite, a constant. It cannot take more than that. But we are throwing into more than that. As a result is the imbalance. Now, where are we now standing? And why the search for these resilient, resource resilient groups? Now, I am just showing you these few slides. Now, I would just say, refer to how much resource humans are appropriating all over the globe. It is measured in terms of, many of you are quite familiar with, I do not have to explain, is the ecological footprint. This ecological footprint is directly or indirectly our consumption, how much of primary productivity, land area in terms of global hectare, average productivity we are appropriating per capita, and what is the total amount we are appropriating. Plus there is, of course, the land use change related, appropriation. So everything together, these are the kind of footprint. You just look at the last column, the total ecological footprint. These are through various kinds of use of land this happens. Now, interestingly, there is other thing which is the biocapacity. There is how much, in short, it is how much of support that the earth can provide. Now, that biocapacity and the footprint, there is a gap between the two, and that gap is what we call the ecological deficit. There is so much we are indebted to the nature, to the world ecosystem. We are drawing from there, but it cannot entirely, really respond to that. It cannot do the job. Then what is happening? What is happening? It is getting reflected in all these what we call negative externalities, expressed in the form of degeneration of human health and the ecosystem's degeneration of regenerative capacity. Two things. Ecosystem health getting damaged and human health getting damaged. Now, interestingly, this is the situation. 1971 we have crossed, the world has crossed the limit. If you look at the present 2011 position, there is 1.5 earth required to absorb to meet what we are demanding as a resource supply and absorb what we are throwing back. In terms of individual countries also, one can find out how many countries of, like they say, China requires 2.68 country of like China to meet the entire supply and absorb all the waste. For India, it is 2.02. We always compare it between India and China. But this is the situation. This is the China's ecological footprint and biocapacity. Biocapacity is you can take it, the support, how much it can provide. This is the India's position. Okay, let me not, and the world as a whole, this is the situation. In 1971, we had crossed the limit. Now, all these lead to what is then required is, that is why the title of this conference, resource economization, resource efficiency, production efficiency, right? Resource resilient growth. Of course, I have some reservation of the use of the term resilience in this context in this manner. The scientists do not use it in this manner. But I would not enter into that discussion here. Now, interestingly, of this total deficit or the total footprint, why such a large excess just in the is the resultant is the ultimate consequence is just some disease and degeneration of the ecosystem. No, not just this, plus something. That is, if you look at the breakup of the total ecological footprint, more than half of it is due to carbon footprint. But what is carbon footprint? Many have very vague, uncertain, unclear ideas. Carbon footprint, when the global footprint network works it out, it is that amount of fossil fuel emission which is in excess of carbon recycling, how much it can take, plus ocean, how much it absorbs, then what is the excess? If this excess amount could be converted, could be recycled, how much additional forest area would have been required? It is that forest area's average productivity unit, numeraire, it is calculated, and in that terms it is found that carbon footprint is more than half of the ecological footprint. That is why all these worry about something is very likely to happen. What is that? That is climate change. That is what the vulnerables of the world would be worst affected. And that is why so many are global concern. Now, since time is very limited, I would just like to say, because it is now we have come to carbon, come to the issue of fossil fuel based energy. That is really the major source of this imbalance. We have to do something to correct it. One is energy conservation on the consumption side, and also change of the fuel mix to go in for renewables so that the carbon intensity goes down. Here, we are now, this current government has given big thrust on this new renewables and targeting 175 gigawatt, am I correct, by 2022, when they have to face their next election. So, 175 gigawatt, just renewable. I have done my own projection modeling, which I do not have the time to share with you. But issue is, do we have sufficient new renewable resources which are of intermittent supply? Yes, we do have. If we use our science and technology inputs intelligently, innovatively, it can be done. But the point on the other hand is, the issue which is raised, do we have the associated infrastructure, grid integration? Because this would be of various kinds of generation, of various technologies, scales, which can all be, homogenized through grid integration. Now, where we may get stuck. Now, that problem can also be addressed. And science and technology, scientists and technologists are doing enormous amount of work all over the world. But the cost of this technology has been the next important question. It is being claimed that it is coming down quite sharply, particularly for solar. Wind was already for India quite competitive with coal. But solar is coming down. But I think even with coming down, they just compared the generation cost here and generation cost there. But it is much more than that. We have to heavily invest in grid. We have to heavily invest in infrastructure. We have to heavily invest in seeing that from the smallest consumer to the largest consumer, all are being supplied quality power, that is frequency not getting disturbed, stable, smooth supply. This requires a lot of investment. Now, I would like to submit here, as I have this point as 2 points of conclusion. One is, our mindset is fixed in terms of either or, either coal or new renewables. But why? This great economist Harold Hotelling, those who have done economics and are in the audience, can you recall the Hotelling's rents concept? What was Waterling's theory implication? That is, you can, in fact, there has been, World Bank has done substantive work. We do not refer to them in this kind of public forum, that you use your exhaustible resources, your fossil fuel, but from every unit that you extract, you take out the resource rent. That is, really speaking, if you correctly calculate the royalty as a rent, that is, whatever people are willing to pay in terms of oil linked, say, energy price, then what is the excess thereof willing to offer to pay over your cost of production? That is rent. Now, if we take for every unit extracted this rent into a fund, you extract it, put it in a fund, and then let that fund, when it accumulates, as you go on depleting coal, your fund gets accumulated, and after a stage, you use the fund for investing in renewables. It can provide a mechanism of converting the fossil fuel into renewables technology. That is, I do not consume up the royalties and the resource rent. What we do? Government, what does government do with the entire royalty which is mobilized from natural resources? It is consumed up. It is used for government salaries. It is used for all kinds of programs. I am not saying that they are socially useless. They have their uses, but unless we earmark and use it that purpose, the system would not be sustainable. After a stage, it will break down. You will be having the acute shortage of money. So this is what we can do by this. Actually, UN has already set up a climate fund. So, but there is I have not found a single line which connects that what it wants to collect as for the putting in the climate fund with the estimate of any resource rent. That is what is required in order to find out whether this is scientifically sustainable or not. Now, this is one point of submission. Another point of just global macro point of view, I would just like to say that we need to improve, if I take the entire resource, just not carbon fuel, we need to raise our resource efficiency, both eco-efficiency and production efficiency. Both consumption pattern we have to look into, and can we change, to what extent we can change our consumption pattern, which was in fact disturbing me in the morning. What can we do to change our consumption pattern? We can possibly do something, surely. And that is required to very closely analyze which are the carbon intensive or resource intensive products whose consumption we should encourage or discourage as per those resource intensity on the one hand. And on the other hand, also we have to see what is its social and distributive implication. Because any action in economics, it is an axiomatic thing that it will imply a cost somewhere. It may be that the poor will not be able to afford that resource the way we intend to use, or the kind of substitute that we are talking about. Now here, actually there is a good work by Ian Gog of, I think a couple of years back. His book came out from his LSE and Bath, I think, both the university jointly. It said it wanted to point out which ones are the resource intensive products and which ones are necessities of the products. Now, it is very interesting to see that those which are necessities, there was a matrix, quite a number of them, substantive chunk, are necessities. But there are also products which are low resource intensity, but they are not, they belong to the luxury listing. So now it requires really much deeper economic, technical, social research. Who will be affected? Actually, it is the elasticity of demand of these resource or resource-based products and on the resource intensity or emission intensity of the products. We have to create a matrix of the two, a matrix between these two columns, and then analyze that of alternative strategies, what would be the implication. And there is a very big problem of trade-off there. So I would stop here, but I would just submit for the future researchers that, well, these are the areas in which people are young researchers in social science and technology, they are working, and we in India need to also proceed very much along that line. I must congratulate our scientist colleague from CSIR. What you had shown, that is how we can reduce the pressure on the virgin drawal of virgin resources. Actually, ultimately, that is what would help in the process. So more enlightenment from your research and findings will help us also in calculating such metrics and analysis. Thank you very much.